Yes, please. Yes, thank you for having the courage to come here today. I did not know what I was getting into. Yes, hi. We'd like to welcome you to this panel in the framework of In Search of Europe. It's called Alpha and Agenda. Can there be such a thing as cultural diplomacy on an equal standing? And I am Caram. I am the co-founder of the Spring Lessons, which is an intercultural exchange program and workshop program. We have done a lot of work between Egypt and Germany, Lebanon and Germany, Tunis and Germany over the last couple of years. And in the interest of shortening things, I will ask the panelists to introduce themselves. So, start with you.
My name is Ahmed Salem. I'm a graphic designer, making origami sometimes, and very interested in comics. And I'm here.
Welcome.
My name is Schielke. I'm an anthropologist. I'm also responsible for the In Search of Europe research project, and I'm doing field work on literary writing in Alexandria, and that's how I came to work together with Iskenderiyan Standards.
My name is Ilka Eickhof. I'm a research associate at Free University in Berlin, and I do research on foreign funding in Cairo, and I guess that's why I sit here.
I'm Gready. I'm from Alexandria, of course. I'm an artist, first of all, and I'm the co-founder of Caram for art and development.
And that's why you're sitting here.
That's why I'm sitting here.
أنا آسف أنا ما بتكلمش إنجليزي، إنجليزي صديق هترجم. أنا ماهر شريف، كاتب قصة من اسكندرية، وأيضا بشتغل مصمم جرافيكي وفنان حر.
He apologized. His name is Maher. He apologized for not he will not be able to speak English. Maher from Alexandria, and he's writing short stories, and he's a free artist, and he's also a graphic designer. Well, my name is Inji. Yes, and it happened that I come from Egypt. I'm a doctor, I'm an artist, but I'm here visiting my friends for the exhibition, and I'm here to translate for Maher.
So my open question to the panelists right now is, what form does this usually take? How are you approached by various institutions, by various people? Does it happen on a private basis to, for instance, engage in an exhibition such as this?
Yes, it's very simple. It's not very simple like that, but because you work with the community and art at the same time. Sometimes because your project is they interest with your project, or because you have something different. So during the process of work, they come and they know you, and they come and work with you. They decide to come and let you share or attend in such a project. But in the same time, you decide if you really have interest with what kind, or if you have something you want to improve it. I think not only that, but many things that you share in such a project, or in the exhibition or program. Yes.
And
I think the question also with the definition you gave us is of cultural diplomacy, and that's now the frame of the talk. It's one frame, but like if how much one-sided it is. Is it cultural diplomacy coming from one side, or is it like?
I was about to ask you about the selection process from the other side.
I can't think about the selection process, but I think that's what you refer to. It's very much, the question is whether the so-called cultural diplomacy is something happening on equal terms, or whether or not it's asymmetrical. And this, as you said, it's a European definition, right?
It is a European definition, and I'm trying to deconstruct it.
Well, let's get straight about it. Cultural diplomacy is about money,
Yes.
and it's totally asymmetric. When European funders go to Egypt, they don't go to Egypt and spend a lot of time to find out what Egyptian artists and people want. No, they go there with the idea that West Germany has the history of being the ideal case of how other countries should be, and we go there and teach them. That is the essential idea of cultural diplomacy, and it's done through cultural projects, artist projects, which claim that they are collaborations. But what is done is that we are offering people money to do the things that we find interesting. And the thing becomes then interesting because people take that money in order to do what they want. But the question is, how to do that? Because, I mean, that's what we did. We went to Alexandria and said, we want an artist to work with us to deconstruct Europe. So we want an artist who is critical about Europe and who does a certain kind of style in contemporary art and who answers emails and whom I don't need to call because in Egypt you should call, but I'm not able to call people, I don't need to answer my emails. So I go there and I become, no matter how critical my intentions are, I am part of the system. And the only thing, and I think the fact that we didn't do it that way, that we actually did an experiment of something that had not been done before, was only possible because we had so little money. Had we had more money, it would have been a different kind of process because, for example, we could have invited a couple of artists whose budget was beyond ours. So I think, let's be straight about it. Cultural diplomacy is about money, it's about paying money, and it's about realizing what people in Germany think are important for Egypt.
But what's the difference? What's the difference you mentioned in your project? What's the thing you did differently?
Just a second. Can everyone hear us?
I find it difficult.
Let's use the microphone.
Okay, we're loud.
I think the difference is that we, 2011, Daniela decided that we will do a process where we do not know what kind of outcome it will bring. Because usually you have to plan, because in order to make a budget, you have to say we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. In that year we held all that, and we did not know what the outcome would be. And if you have 10,000 euro, you need to know what the outcome is. If you have 20,000 euro, you need to have a very clear vision. So that, I think, was the essential difference.
Europe sent, give us a gift, very expensive gift, as a Belgian mirror. It's very expensive, by the way. But they told us this mirror will reflect your image. It is your image. You have to accept it. But it's not true. So I think they spent money in this to give us a mirror to see ourselves. It's not our image.
أنا في البداية هجاوب في جزء من إجابتي عن السؤال اللي طرح الأول.
First of all, I'm going to answer the first question.
في الحقيقة المشروع بتاعنا ممكن يكون مختلف شوية. في عامل مهم جدا اسمه صامولي ودانيال. صامولي صديق.
There's a very important factor. The first factor is that Samuli and Daniela, they are our friends.
صامولي كان معانا في 2011 كانت الثورة المصرية وكانت الناس في الشارع عندها حساسية شديدة تجاه الإيمان.
Samuli was with us during 2011, and 2011 it was the beginning of the revolution, and there was a bit of sensitivity in the Egyptian street towards foreigners.
ولولا المعرفة الشخصية وعلاقتنا الوطيدة مع صامولي أظن الموضوع كان هيبقى مختلف تماما في 2011.
And because we know Samuli and we knew him before and we had a strong relation with him, so that has changed the situation. Otherwise, the project or the collaboration would have been completely different.
لاننا في الثوره كنا شايفين اوروبا معجبه بينا، لكن الناس كانوا داخليا يحملوا كراهيه لاوروبا لاحساسهم ان هي بتفرض عليهم شيء.
Europe was amazed or admired what we have done in Egypt, but in Egypt we had always that feeling that what we happened is because of Europe. What the problem that happened in Egypt is because it was Europe.
There was a hatred. There was a sense of hatred.
Yes. فكان طبيعي السؤال وقتها نظرتنا للاخر الاوروبي بالذات يبقى سؤال مهم ويستحق الاجابه.
We were interested to see the question. What is the question of the European man, and this needs to be answered or deserves to be answered.
ده الشغل اللي احنا اشتغلنا عليه من سنتين مع صامولي علشان ننتج اسكندريه.
This is the project that we worked with Samuli for 2 years, and we have produced this project for after 2 years.
لكن كمان انا عاوز اقول نقطه مهمه ان احنا الثلاثه اشتغلنا في عمل فني. انا وعلياء واحمد حاولنا نتجاوز اختلافاتنا الفنيه، لكن اكيدا مش هنتجاوز اختلافاتنا السياسيه والثقافيه.
I need also to clarify that we were 3 artists, me and Aliaa and Ahmed. We were artists and we worked in that project, and we managed to work and to collaborate in the project despite the fact that politically we're not the same, we are a bit different.
فتوقعوا النهارده ممكن تسمعوا 3 آراء ل3 مصريين كل واحد شايف اوروبا ازاي.
So expect that today we are 3 artists, but we are going probably that you're going to hear 3 different opinions from 3 artists that how they perceive Europe.
As an artist, as a human being, I think all the earth is full of human beings. So actually, from my opinion, why should I tell that's European, that's Middle East, that's... I think when I had it from my experience, some details or some issues from the relation that I decide from my side how the people see me, so I give them also chance to show me the image. So I cannot say, okay, that's European, so he's decided to do that and that and that, and I complain because he had his schedule or agenda about me. I have to tell him, wait, let us sit, discussion, and we decide together, and don't think about the heritage of each other. We can read it and decide and study the heritage, but please let us go through something more effective or more human being. Like I think we share as artists or as communities, or we share that the others push or put us in such image. We have also to tell, no, sorry, I need that and that.
صامولي في البدايه جه هو دانيال اللي عمل مسرحيه معانا اجنده. ده كان في 2011. 2011 كان مصطلح الاجنده مطروح بشكل قوي، يعني افكارك الغريبه اللي بتحملها المجتمع المصري.
When Samuel and Daniela they came to Egypt in 2011, we worked on a play. It's called Agenda. So the agenda, it meant at that time what ideas do you have Europe would have towards the Egyptian society.
2011 الشارع المصري تنهاج، يعني في ثوره، في ناس بتموت كل يوم في الشارع، الناس بتنزل وهي مش عارفه بكره هيحصل ايه، فكان الموضوع شويه مش هادي وما يتحملش التفكير الهادي.
In 2011, it was a year of the revolution. The street in Egypt was chaotic. There was energy everywhere. people were killed in the street, people they would go in the street and they don't know if they would get killed or they go back home. So it was difficult to have this peaceful thinking about what we were doing.
فكان من الطبيعي ان انا ممكن اشوف حاجه في صامولي او ما اقدرش ادافع عنه في الشارع.
So it was normal that I would suspect what Samuel is thinking, and probably I would not be able to defend him at a certain point.
صامولي صديقي كان في 2011 بالنسبه لي غريب اجنبي بيتابع الحدث.
Samuel, my friend, in 2011, for me, I perceived him as a foreigner and watching what is happening in the street during the revolution.
بعد كده الموضوع تغير تماما وجينا في 2012 وحسينا ان سؤال الاجنده بقى مش هو السؤال الحاضر لكن السؤال الاهم هو نظرتنا للاخر.
In 2012, the situation has changed. We didn't think about the agenda subject. It's about what we think about how to look to the other and how to perceive the other.
والحقيقه هو سؤال نسبي تماما. انا بالنسبه لي هيبقى الموضوع مختلف تماما لان السؤال ده اجابته تنبع لازم تيجي من داخل خلفيات كل انسان.
Well, the answer for this question is a theoretical question because the answer always comes from your. It comes from your cultural background. It comes from your.
أنا بالنسبة لي في حاجز بيني وبين الآخر الأجنبي لأن أنا ما بعرفش لغته واللغة عامل مهم في التواصل فبالنسبة لي أنا في على الجانب الآخر في شيء مجهول أنا ما بعرفوش.
I have a problem personally because I don't I have a language barrier, so I cannot communicate well. I cannot understand what he's saying.
أنا بشتغل في الثقافة والفن. أنا بفضل دايماً إن أنا أشتغل مع اللي بيفهمني. بفضل دايماً إني أشتغل مع الإنسان اللي أقدر أتواصل معاه بشكل أكبر. وبالتالي الشغل مع الأجنبي الأوروبي بيبقى فيه عوائق كتيرة أنا ما بحبهاش.
I would prefer being an artist. I would prefer to work with someone that I would be able to communicate with and be able to understand what he's thinking. So working with a foreigner, it's a big obstacle for me.
الأوروبيين بيقولوا إن إحنا عندنا فوضى وفي الحقيقة فوضتنا هي نظامنا ويمكن هم مش قادرين يفهموا.
Well, European they say that we are chaotic. There's no discipline in our society, but probably being a chaotic, this is our discipline, and the European they don't understand this.
كمان نظام الأوروبيين هو بالنسبة لي شيء ستاتيك، شيء ممل جدا، شيء أنا ما بقدرش أتحمله.
The discipline in Europe is it's static and boring, and it's something that I cannot tolerate myself.
ولو كان في اعتقاد الأوروبيين إن عشان لازم يبقى في تواصل، بس التواصل لازم يبقى مني أنا، لأن أنا اللي محتاجهم، ده كمان بيعمل عندي مشكلة ذاتية.
Well, I have another problem. If European would think that we need to communicate, and because we need to communicate, I should communicate and I should do this communication because I'm the one in need, I don't want this communication.
Yes, thank you.
So we have the problem here that people come with a certain expectation towards a standard, which is not always applicable. And that by funding certain things, funders are also looking for, let's say, a certain image of an artist, which is not necessarily the chaotic Egyptian artist. So maybe we can talk for a minute about the topics and the things that they are looking for. And maybe
Actually, when you decide to work with the topics, you don't say, okay, I wake up now and I decide to work with that. No. Or?
the question is more which topics are they looking for? And this I will direct to Ilka first, because I'm sure she has a couple of things to say. And then, I mean, I'd like to continue the question with, do those topics actually represent a society?
what I think that very much relates to what has been said before by you, but also by you just now, there are certain buzzwords, of course, that go with funding, right? Like we have the same in the academia, but we also have the same in the arts world. So, like for instance, within the past 2 years in the revolution, the buzzwords to get funding from foreign cultural institutions or from Western institutions were very much graffiti, for instance, or anything gender related or anything youth related. So those were the main categories. So I mean, probably you have a high chance to get funding if you wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm going to do a piece on women and the revolution. That's it. You don't need to say much more, right? I mean, that was it. So, but everyone is pretty much aware of it, and also I know a lot of people, they know that they have to play within that game and they use it, and that's fair enough. And they use the content, they know how to tweak it, how to tweak the proposal, how to get the funding actually, how to be involved. The only thing is, it's more or less, it's then again always the same people. It's a tiny circle of artists who are being selected by the British foundations, and it's also the ones who know how to write a proposal and who know language. I think the British Council is one of the institutions who also allow proposals written in Arabic to be accepted, but I think the Goethe Institute doesn't, for instance. Now talking about Egypt specifically. So there's a very clear set of rules and lines to follow.
Yeah, but actually the circle starts to grow up. Like some people, if you talk about proposals, some professionals now writing especially proposals for the artist or the society, community association who need that. There is such employed for. But if we back to the question, even with all what the others need us to do it, we still fight to do what we want and what we need. Like we study our society, if I'm still in the line now, you know.
So one of the solutions to the problem of asymmetrical funding is actually knowing the society, as actually having lived there. So I'm actually going to ask Samuli now, how has living in Alexandria changed your view of A, standards that need to be applied to, well, let's call it curation and cultural diplomacy, and B, how has your approach to them changed?
This is the first time ever that I've done this kind of diplomacy. It's the first time ever that I've actually been in a position of handing out a commission. Before that, I've always worked on myself as an anthropologist. I have not paid anybody any money, and nobody else has been paying me money except for my employer. So this is my first experiment. I cannot compare. But I think what I realized that realizing a kind of project like we did, which, you know, in many ways it is still like other project, but I think it's a little better in some details. It requires some very simple things, such as it requires a lot more time. Because most of the time when you do this kind of funding projects, often you have very capable people on every step, but you have a hierarchical structure, you have major funding programs, you have guidelines which you have to fulfill, you have short periods of time, and all this makes it very difficult to actually adjust to what is needed. And the background is, of course, that cultural diplomacy is foreign policy, and foreign policy serves the interest of the country whose foreign policy it is. I mean, that's fine, you know, let's recognize that. And, but I have a friend of mine who works in development work, and he says the same problem, that actually you can do development projects much better. But that means that you have to spend a year planning. You have to spend a year going and asking around, saying, people, what do you actually need? What do you want? And you have to have the patience to actually find out what is there. And I think for a big institution it is difficult to work that way. For me as an individual it is possible to work that way. But I think the question is how to turn this individual possibility, which some people have, into an institution. I don't know. I have the feeling that institutions by tendency, by the very structure how they are as institutions, they reproduce policies, and it's very difficult for them to actually appropriate feedback.
I have two experiences in my life with two foreigners. They are, I think, it's between them 25 years, between the first experience and the last experience. First experience, I was 15 years old and I was trying to learn how to be silkscreen printer. So I work with a guy, he's a famous guy in Alexandria. He was one of the last people. They was assistant for the foreigners. The last foreigners were having workshops for printing and stuff like this. And this guy teach me like the same way the foreigners taught him. He didn't teach me stuff that I need. He teach me stuff he want. Like, he didn't teach me how to prepare a chaperone. To prepare a chaperone. But he teach me how to clean his squishy. He teach me how to clean the room. He teach me how to arrange the stuff. And after that, he teach me because he feel a little bit tired. So how to pull the ink on the chaperone with the squishy. Okay, and he make a forbidden room for me to make the dark room. He said, it's a dark room, you are not allowing to go there. If I catch you, I will break your fingers. My teachers told me that, so I tell you that. Once I will teach you, you are not ready yet. So, yeah, since I was a kid, I like to break some rules. So I go to the dark room, and somehow, after 9 hours working with the blue ink, I cover myself with the blue ink, I discovered the way. And the other teacher, he is sitting here beside me, Samuli, and I told him, yeah, Samuli, you are not Khawaja. You are not European at all, because he took a shot for me in this exhibition room. You will find the shot. He take it for the old people they sharing in Alexandria, and he didn't have enough time to take my photo in Alexandria. But we came here, and he take it here in Pitania, in front of Pitania. So he asked me to come with him to his lab to help him to prepare the photo. And suddenly, smoothly, he teach me everything he know about how to prepare a photo, and he make it. And I was a little bit shocked, because I didn't expect from a European to teach me like this without he need anything from me. All the time, that's why I have my opinion about the late European was living in Alexandria, and they was considering themselves as Alexandrian, by the way. The Italian, the German, the English, the French. We was a cosmopolitan city, but there is some specific jobs exclusive for the foreigner, like the leather work, the printing, the jewelry, like this. But they didn't teach their assistants some techniques. They keep it to themselves. And after they leave Alexandria, these people, these assistants, didn't learn everything. So they miss. So حصل لنا التدهور ده في الصناعات الفنية بشكل أو بآخر.
So there was a collapse in the quality of industrial production because the Egyptians who took over the workshops didn't know some things which the owners had kept secret.
So is possibly one of the intentions of so-called cultural diplomacy to make Europe seem like a more advanced and better state?
No, I don't think so. Because I think Europeans usually are very convinced that they are more advanced. So they don't need to convince themselves that they assume that already. And I'm not sure if it's really like Ahmed said, that we are trying to keep some secrets for ourselves. It's also that because we are so convinced that we are so good, we try to teach people things that they don't need, or we teach them wrong, or that actually are not so as good as the things people have. I gave you another example, a totally different example, outside of culture. There is a big issue of microcredits. Microcredits, since many years, are a big process, lots of development help goes into microcredits. I met once somebody from a German bank here, and they asked, like, what should we do in Egypt? I said, do whatever you want, but don't do microcredits, because Egyptians have an existing traditional system of mutual credit, which is interest-free. It's much better for the people. If you bring people microcredits, you take away their money. But so in this case, for example, what development agencies would do, then they would replace a good system by a worse system. And so the question is, I think, not so much that Europeans don't want to give away their knowledge, but that their knowledge is not always useful. And that I was, in 2011, I was invited to a conference for academics who wanted to apply funding on the production of knowledge in Egypt in the framework of the Transformation Partnership. It's very funny, in Germany they always talk about transformation. They don't like to use the word revolution. The word revolution is not popular in Germany, although I don't know why. So I was invited to the program. It was about developing projects in doing two things. One was to provide trainings to teach Egyptians to do things right. The other one was to send European academics to Egypt to study them and to study Egyptian traditions of knowledge production. Nowhere was there any idea that we could learn from Egypt.
I think there is an interest in regulating civil society, and that's why most of the projects which are being funded by foreign cultural institutions are projects which are very much, which can be seen in combination with a somehow linear notion of how we would like to see democracy and civil society. And that's why the only interest is on youth and gender and human rights, but everything in a very Eurocentric notion. There is no place for a different notion of that. And the other thing, which we haven't talked about at all, I mean, just in the case of Cairo, I know that like the Goethe Institute is in Cairo since 1943, I think, and the British Council since 1938. So, of course, you have to look at those institutes also in the context of colonialism and post-colonialism and all that. But we cannot not look at it, and it has to be seen in that context. And there's this continuity. And if we talk about the real interest, and you made this example with the fishermen, which I find really interesting, because I wonder why the institutes, these cultural institutes, didn't aim for or don't aim for making themselves redundant, in the sense that they shift the responsibility to locals. And I mean, the money can still flow. There's nothing bad with that. But like the power of selection process of everything is not on the hands of Egyptians. It's in the hands of the foreigners, right?
Well, I think we have to revise ourselves being Egyptian. So it's not only that the European, they don't understand us completely, it's also, it's on our side also Egyptian, we don't understand the European completely.
يعني جزء كبير من المصريين بيتصوروا ان اوروبا شخص واحد بيفكروا بنفس الطريقه اللي هم في خيالهم ازاي الاوروبي بيصور بيها، يعني مفيش تفكير على ان الاوروبيين دول اشخاص مختلفين، ذوات مختلفه.
Well, the majority of the Egyptian, they think that Europe is represented in one person, and all people in Europe, they look the same. They look the same. This is the one person who represents Europe.
وعشان خاطر تاريخ اوروبا سيء جدا معانا صراحه، يعني فالأوروبيين كلهم بياخدوا يعني بيوصلوا بنفس المعايير اللي احنا كنا بنوصل بيها التاريخ السابق، مع ان ده مش حقيقي.
Unfortunately, the history of Europe is not very good in our society. And thus, whatever we would think about European, we would think about what we have in our mind and our history.
فممكن يكون مصري ما يعرفكمش خالص، عمره ما يعرفكم في حياته ويكرهكم.
So you may find Egyptian that they have never met you before and they don't know you very well, but probably they would hate you.
وده مش عادل تماما.
And this is not fair at all.
love them so much.
لكن حصل حاجة مهمة في السنين الأخيرة.
Something important happened in the last few years.
ثورة الإنترنت. بالإنترنت قدرنا نعرف بعض كأشخاص.
The revolution of internet. By internet, we started to know the other in persons, not only one person.
فنعرف إن أنتوا ناس طيبين وكويسين ولاد حلال وعندكم أخلاق زينا. يعني ناس.
So we started to know the European. They're people. They have good morals. They're like us, you know. They have the good part and they have the bad part.
شكرا صديقي. كمان ده بدأ أنا في اعتقادي الشخصي إن بدأ يبقى هذا التحول ينسحب كمان على المؤسسات الأوروبية الراعية.
I think this change also personally. I think this change is not only the change of the society. It has also this change has reflected on the institution.
لأن المؤسسات الأوروبية الراعية أعتقد يعني المؤسسات الممولة بتحمل عند في وجهة نظرنا احنا جزء من ميراث الاستعمار.
Because we think that this European institution, they still have in the character a part of the history of the colonization.
الاستعمار في مجمله كان شيء سيء، لكن اللي دارسين التاريخ حتى بالنسبة للتاريخ المصري كان في حاجات جيدة جدا حصلت في الإطار السيء ده.
Colonialism, overall colonialism was bad, but if we study the history carefully, we would think that there's also a good part of colonization that we have to admit it.
أنا أعتقد المجتمع المصري دلوقتي في مرحلة الغربلة، بدأ يعرف بالظبط الناس دي عاوزة منه إيه، الناس اللي هي زيه بالظبط اللي هي ممكن عاوزة منه خير، لكن ممكن يبقى عاوزة منه شر، ويقدر يعرف يغرب الموضوع ده بشكل بسيط.
I think the Egyptian society now is in a state of change. So we would think about who are the people that they want the good and who are the people that they want the bad. We are still in that stage of thinking and finding.
أنا أثق في المستقبل إنه هيبقى التعامل مع أوروبا كممولة هيبقى أفضل بكتير من ما كان بيحصل قبل كده.
I think personally that the future would be good. I think the funding institution, the history, the future for the funding institution would be better than what used to happen before.
عشان أوروبا فيها شوية خير برضه.
Because Europe has some good as well.
Sure. Speaking of the good, Aliaa, this one is actually for you. You have your civil society association, Caram, and you do a lot of work in, let's call them disenfranchised areas. What good are you offered, and what good do you accept from Europe?
Okay, from the beginning in this circle of funding and working with, it was hard to convince them that you need to learn from your experience, not from the others, and from the other programs comes from abroad. It takes time, but step by step I can say that some papers, some opinions changed through 15 years working, which is long. And some spots happened And some people, institutions think that, okay, we can listen, we can understand, we can like what you do. But let me say that I don't like to say that I'm here, I'm working as a community waiting for the fund comes from up. Let us say that we're working together to have the good for all the earth, not only for part of the earth. Because what's bad in Egypt, it's gonna be bad and you're gonna feel it in somewhere, even far away. And my experience was really that I'm not only as an association who learn, but also who works with me from Europe, from Africa, from USA, from everywhere and all over the world. We got together experience. We share experience together. Even the society. I want to say that when I open the door for some people comes from different nationalities, they reach the relation with the local people. Like let's give an example. We had a project with a fisherman village, and it was totally difficult to enter such a place. Even us as Egyptians. Because they are afraid of foreigners and consider us as foreigners who are speaking Arabic and we are the same nationality. What about people comes from abroad, had sometimes different colors, dark or white, no different for them. Anyone different is me, no, I don't want you, I'm afraid of you. But still, with the years, these cases changed. And people had the same, even without language, they had something to tell each other.
And now I'd like actually to talk about the Iskenderiyan Standard for a bit, because you had a lot of discussion around the topic of curation and things like that. And whom shall I address this question to? Maher.
Yes. الحقيقة أنا شايف إن في حلول طبعا، والحلول بدأت يعني إحنا بدأنا فعلا نعرف نتعامل مع الأوروبيين.
I think there's so many solutions, and this solution has like we can see the solutions now. We've already started working with European.
بس في قاعدة يعني مش عارف إذا كان الأوروبي يعرفها ولا لا، لكن ما فيش بقى إن إحنا نقولها يعني. أنت صعب جدا تخدع المصري، لكن خلي بالك المصري هيخدعك على طول.
But there's one base that you have to be aware. You cannot deceive Egyptian. Probably Egyptian will deceive you. They will know how to take your money. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about funding an institution.
بس يمكن النجاح بتاع الشغل بتاع اسكندريه ستاندرد ان هو ما اشتغلش ابدا بالنظام المؤسسه الراعيه والافراد الممولين.
Because probably our success from the work we have done here, that it didn't have the same idea. It didn't have that European institution funding and artists who are waiting for this fund.
احنا كنا بنتعامل مع اشخاص بيحملوا لنا فكره واحنا بنتناقش فيها، وبعد كده لو في احتياجات كان بتتلبى حسب اللي موجود.
We worked with person. We had an idea. We collaborated and we had a discussion and we had an outcome of this.
عشان كده انا كتير من اصدقائي في اسكندريه واللي اشتغلوا كمان في المشروع معانا ما كانش فكره الفلوس هي فكره اساسيه في الموضوع، لكن احنا نحقق الحاجه اللي احنا حاسينها وعاوزين نعملها حتى لو ما كانش في فلوس على الاطلاق.
So for us and for our friends in Alexandria who've been participating in that work, we didn't think about money. We thought about what we wanted to develop and what we felt that this is what we need to create.
تعاملنا كاصدقاء، ودي قاعده مهمه جدا في التعامل معانا. تعاملوا معنا بحب وكاصدقاء. بعد كده يجي النقطة الثانية نقطة الفلوس. ساعتها ممكن ما نختلفش تماما، لكن هنتعامل بطريقة تانية هندخل في مراحل الخديعة.
First of all, we worked as friends, and this is how it worked. We loved each other, and then when money comes, we didn't have a problem, and there was no place for deceiving each other.
الأصدقاء أكيد في بينهم اختلافات، بس ممكن أنتوا تعرفوا أكتر مني، يعني ممكن أنتوا عندكم حضارة ومعلومات أكتر مني بكتير، لكن المسألة مش تبقاش مين أحسن من التاني، المسألة إحنا الاتنين بنستفيد من بعض. أنا كمان عندي الحاجات اللي أنتوا مش عارفينها واللي أنا ممكن أديها لكم.
There are differences between friends and.
المسألة مش بس تعرفوا أكتر مننا.
The issue is not that you know more than us.
وده ممكن يبقى حقيقي، لكن المسألة إن إحنا كمان ممكن عندنا حاجات تانية.
Which could be true, but the issue is that we have also some to give.
حاجات أكتر من تصورات النمطية عن فكرة اللي بيدفع فلوس وعاوز التاني يعمل بقدر الفلوس اللي أخدها بالظبط.
More than the issues of funding, more than the issue of how much would you pay and what we would produce out of this.
عشان كده لو وصلنا للمرحلة دي هنخدعكم، هناخد فلوسكم ومش هنديكم أي حاجة.
If we reach to that stage, at that moment, I think we would deceive you, and we would take your money and come in.
مش هنديكم حاجة خالص.
And we won't give you anything.
I think that money is an important issue because there is a paradox to having good funding and to having bad funding. And sometimes bad funding allows one to evade certain issues that comes with well-funded projects. But there's something else that is very important that has nothing to do with the issue of the funding, which is that Daniela, as the curator of the exhibition, works, and I think this has been the principle of the entire exhibition, you can see it also with lots of other artworks, works in a way where she likes the unknown, she likes the experiment. So the very fact that the Iskenderiyan Standard came together as a group, as a collaborative project, and collaborative projects are always risky because what happens if somebody in a group, for example, get into disagreement and don't want to talk with each other anymore? What happens if somebody gets sick and they're sick and the other ones can't work? Collaborative works are always riskier than individual works. And so Daniela's willingness to actually try out something which could be really interesting, but there was no guarantee other than goodwill. That I think made this kind of project possible. And I think there is otherwise, because otherwise very often there is a form of working where people who do projects, basically write their project report before they do anything, because the main outcome of the work is the project report. This is especially typical in NGOs. I mean, in arts you can't do that, because in art you have to deliver an artwork, and the artwork has to be good. And that is what you measure on. So the arts are in a way a bit more immune to this problem than other fields. But I think I think I made my point. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Daniela Zalowski, I'm the curator. So I would like to say something about this whole process, because when it came out in bits and pieces maybe, but having money coming from Europe and working with people from Africa, the Middle East, South America, whatever, everything which we can call the South if you want, is bringing and putting me in this way into a problem. Because I had a long process in how am I going to approach this in this position as the European curator. And the first journey I took was going to Istanbul and introducing the project In Search of Europe, coming from the Center of Modern Orient, and all the artists had immediately a huge mistrust. Their hairs were standing up, and they heard Europe, they heard Orient, and everything, all the walls went down. And there was no normal conversation possible, where we could not communicate that it is not about Europe, that, we are not Orientalists. But, all this kind of history, they just, they got rejected to enter Europe, they were, so I saw this is not the way to approach it. So I have to be more creative in my own approach. So the next journey was to Alexandria with Samuli, because I accompanied every researcher on their research location. And what you can see in this kind of pre-events, the idea was that I tried to figure out if the questions the researchers are posing, and also we as In Search of Europe are posing, have any relevance to the people on the ground, or is this the discourse which is interesting for them? I wanted feedback and develop little things on the ground. That's my way of working. So then I said, Samuli, we are going to Egypt. It's there was just a huge wave of revolution going on. They are not waiting for us. Why should they search for Europe? They are searching for a new Egypt. Yeah? So I said, let's do something, because there are so many prejudices from our side, from their side. I'm supposed to find, a brilliant artist, and everybody's pointing out the same brilliant artists who are going to all the biennials who are coming from Alexandria. It's always the same names, it's like a very one-way journey. So I said, let's make something, challenge ourselves, use our role as a projection screen for the local people, and use this kind of Orientalist and European curator, and let's write this little Hörspiel audio play, which you can hear here, as a starting point, to put all these kind of prejudices and hegemonic ideas on the ground, because normally you always think it, but you never put it on the table, you never talk about it. And let's see what's happening. Let's take this as the starting point, that we know what's going on, that we're reflecting about our own positioning in this. Because I don't want to come and pick somebody. That's not my style. I don't want that. But it's people have so many history. There's so much history which is standing in between us. Let's put it on the table and see where we can start from there in a more constructive way. And so this was the attempt and approach I tried to take in this whole project. As we say that we want to meet on equal footing, but how to do that? Because I have the money and I have the power, which is money. And people do crawl in your ass and don't tell you what they really think. This is something which does happen, yeah? And in order to be really open and to meet on equal footing, I wanted to put that on the table and see what happened. And, taking the risk to take artists who are not on the international floor, if you want, because, he's a graphic designer. Ahmed is doing this wonderful, you're doing books with Ahmed. But you have not been to the big biennials or whatever. So I wanted to take this risk and see, because you were interested in this approach, you engaged with us, you were sort of responding to us. Aliaa sort of organized this kind of... Sorry?
My name is Caram. I'm an artist. I live in London. I'm originally from Caram. It's not really a question, but I've been listening to what people have been saying, and I had the urge to jump in, but there was no possibility. So I wrote a couple of notes, if you don't mind, just like me talking about all the things. Starting with what somebody was saying about this project, that where they wanted people to go and study how Egyptians are, what Egyptians are about. And that reminded me of a paragraph in Edward Said's book, Orientalism, about Israeli giving a speech, saying in his speech that we know Egypt. And we know the Egyptians. But because we know Egypt and we know the Egyptians, we can tell them to do what to do, and we can treat them in the way we want them to treat them. And we know that we are superior to those people, although they have long history and so on and so forth, but we are better than them. So this idea of cultural diplomacy and building kind of outposts of like whether European states or American or whatever advanced states has been around for a very long time. And I don't really care for this colonialism or post-colonialism things, but I think there's a very interesting point of comparison between what has been there for a very long time and what has been happening even now again, over and over. Are we expecting them, or are we expecting anyone to give us a fish, or even to teach us how to catch a fish? And whether when they start teaching us how to fish, certain kind of fish, I mean, how complex and how difficult that is. So when German or French or Spanish, institutions try to give us like tools, these instruments of fishing, but what to fish, speak Spanish or French or German, it doesn't really help you of like advancing your own culture, or becoming something more of like a forward-thinking being. So when it comes to the European institutions that fund projects in Egypt or in the Middle East, a lot of them give the funding to people who produce kind of pseudo-progressive art that only helps them look as if they are helping progressive art in the Middle East. It's a very vicious circle that actually counterproductive and doesn't produce good culture. And I think one of the things we should learn, we should understand, and should try to do, is to say no to funding. We should just say we don't want your money, because money almost comes with an agenda, and this agenda is very problematic. And I just want to point one thing that Iskenderiyan Standards and some of the discussions that were going between Samuli and Maher and Aliaa and others and Aliaa, and the difficulty of understanding and dealing with the European. There are some texts and some points that were made in the text that were very frictional. They created like a lot of anxiety, a lot of like discomfort and
one of the texts that are in the Iskenderiyan Standards literary anthology. This is the same text as in the exhibition, but this is on sale for €5.
The big book, the handmade book of
this is Maher's book, edited and published by Maher on the basis of a literary workshop that was 1 year ago.
I mean, the relationship between Egyptians and Europe is a very kind of problematic relationship. It's a love-hate relationship. It's a relationship that has been going from ever since the time of the Enlightenment in Egypt and until now. So Egyptians see Europe as a place of knowledge, a place of like social and political freedom, but nevertheless it is like complex of superiority, the superiority complex. Though Egyptians have this long history and this like feeling of being great, nevertheless they know in concrete terms that they need this, place, this Europe of such. And that was very coming out in a very apparent way in those texts and those discussions between them. And I thought that was very profound and very important, but it was not pointed to within this panel. So I think it would be good to hear from Samuli, from Ahmed, and others, what they thought of it, and also from
If there would be no more money?
No. This kind of, the friction, this disagreement, that was very strong.
As for the money, I would say, yeah, some people say that the solution is not to take money. But I think the problem is precisely that the money does make it possible to create some very good cultural infrastructure. So, good things are being made with it, useful things are being made with it, but it comes with a lot of problems. Because if it would just only corrupt, then it would be very simple to say, close the money and stop it. But because it also does create infrastructure, this makes it problematic. It is useful as well.
I got really frustrated in, as a person working here in the German infrastructure with deadlines, with funding bodies wanting to get reports, with Stefan Bauer who wants an exhibition here. I am dependent on reliability, on response, on a concept. And so if I'm not getting that, and this is sort of a bit what this text is about, and not being able to go on a daily basis or on a monthly basis to Egypt to talk to the people and sit in front of them and know what they're doing, what they're thinking, then at some point the frustration level is getting too high and you're breaking off the collaboration. So it was really thanks to Samuli, because he's there on a regular basis, and that he was able to respond to the Iskenderiyan Standards, which I can't in my position, because I cannot go there on a regular basis. I cannot organize a workshop in 2 days or 3 days, because planning does not work, long-term planning. But as in my position, I cannot afford to do that. So it was really only happening thanks to Samuli, because he could respond to their standards. In my position, it was difficult. That is one thing. The other thing is, like, I find your statement interesting to say. I mean, you should not take any money. I mean, I know that you are working. You are not responsible. You're not depending on money. So I'm interested. How many of us are depending on this kind of funding? Because I'm running on funding. I know that Samuli is running on funding. I guess that Aliaa is running on funding. I don't know, I don't know all of them. But there are two people I know from you too that you deliberately are not, you're working hard on many other things in order, and you are, I don't say that art became your hobby, but I think you have a reason why you're doing so.
All the artists or all the people in the culture of the arts, they can collaborate together and make some they can, and we can pay monthly fees to this. So we are a lot of people working in this field. So we can fund ourselves, but I want to make this more about. I'm not saying no even to fund or money. Yeah, I'm not taking any money or funding. I'm not depending on this. But there is something. Maybe I told you before. That to end this stuff. It's once upon a time there was people. They live in the same dark cave, and suddenly, by accident, some of them found just a small hole in the wall. And by their effort, I cannot say not, they try to make the hole bigger and bigger, and they can escape, and they can see the light. But after they escape from this cave, they close the door again. And they have the key, and they say who to come and who to get in. So they have to remember that they came from the same cave, and if they open sometimes the door, it's nothing to mean that because it's generosity. It's not. They have to be like this because all of us belong to this place, and all of us, we deserve to be out. So the collaboration must happen. How? When? I don't know. Shukran.
I think that was a nice closing statement. Thank you very much for again braving this with us. And if anyone has anything to say, go ahead and say it. I'm done more or less.
I would also like to say that of course we will be around here for a moment, so also we can continue discussion in a more informal frame after we get up from our chairs. And let me once more make an advertisement for the Iskenderiyan Standards book by 12 authors, edited and made by Maher Sherif, available on sale in 2 languages, Arabic and English.